Bookworms Horror Podcast is sponsored by Creepy Crate. Creepy Crate is a horror and true crime subscription box filled with spooky collectibles, macabre accessories, and terrifying goodies. Each bi-monthly box is filled with over $85 of terror and includes at least one horror or true crime book. This box delivers dread to your doorstep for just $39.99 with free shipping. Go to creepycrate.store to subscribe. Use the code Bookworm5 at checkout to get $5 off your subscription. That's Bookworm5 for $5 off your subscription. And now to the show. Welcome to Bookworms Horror Podcast, a podcast to get you inspired to write and hopefully get you encouraged to submit to our horror zine Bookworms. I'm your host, James Ippoliti. Check out my latest YouTube book review. It's the Audible-only original creature feature featuring stories from Joe Hill, Grady Hendrix, Paul Tremblay, and many more. If you haven't purchased issue 3, the Halloween issue of Bookworms, it is selling out fast, so get your worms today. The Etsy link is in the show notes. Regina is a Waddy Award winner for Best Horror Novel, as well as multiple screenwriting awards, including a Webby honoree. Regina is also the contributing editor of the best-selling Local Haunts, a horror tube anthology. Find Regina and her alter ego, Batilda, at her BookTube channel, Regina's Haunted Library, and on her blog, rstclair.com. Regina and myself are the editors of the Bookworms Horror Zine, and since we're seeking great horror fiction for bookworms, we created this weekly podcast to offer writers quick tips on writing for the genre. Find all our links in the show notes. Now let's jump into my conversation with Regina as she speaks with me from her haunted library. This week we have a new quote by John Irving. This one is about beginning your story. And we're going to discuss how beginnings when you're writing. Here's how John Irving says how he begins.
I always begin with a character or characters and then try to think up as much action for them as possible.
What do you think? What do you always begin with?
I do start with a character. I think that's excellent advice. I think Stephen King said something similar. As much action as possible. I mean, that can be interpreted different ways, but definitely starting with a character, I think is very smart. I was just reading, even though this isn't my usual Halloween reading, I belong to a book club in Bristol at that new bookstore, and we're currently reading Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen.
Ooh,
classic.
That's so weird. Last night I was watching this documentary on Jane Austen's home, I guess, that she died in.
Oh.
And it was this real sad. Do you know, here's a fact, how much money she made in her entire life on her books?
I have no idea.
When she died, her entire amount of money she made from her books was £650.
Wow.
Now
does she have an estate that, I mean, I guess her stuff's been in the public domain a long time.
Her family was rich, I think.
Yeah, and, from a certain class.
She came, but she was living in what they thought of was low class, the way she was living. Her brother was basically supporting her, I think. But, now she's looked at in a whole different way. But she had a very sad ending, and so it's interesting you bring that up. But anyway.
Yeah, but I was just, when I sat down to read this, I'd read it before at least once when I was in college, but I'm like, oh, it's going to be classic. It's going to be boring. But within the first paragraph, I'm like hooked into the story because it begins with the characters and it begins with the problem of, this mother trying to marry off her 5 daughters in a time. And this is also where context is important. Mm-hmm. If they didn't marry, they would be impoverished, or they, would have to find ways to support themselves, maybe by being a maid or like a governess rather, kind of thing. So yeah, great story and great writing. The book is awesome, of course. Classics are that way for a reason, but yes, always start with a character. I believe that absolutely 100%. And a lot of times writers, and I've done this myself, and I'll begin with like, I got to set the scene first, but you don't really. The scene comes out of the action.
That's right.
Like the setting.
Yeah, your character is going to determine a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know your character, then you don't know how they're going to react, and you're not going to know, where they would go in any scene. You don't know what they would do.
Yes, I absolutely. I feel like one of my strengths as a writer, which if I can say that about myself, I have weaknesses too. But one of my strengths are, I feel like I create good characters, and I really believe that's because my background is in drama.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where I started. And I think about, I sometimes even act out what my character would do. Like I become my character, and I really try to create a well-rounded character. And that is one of my pet peeves when I read submissions people send in are just undefined characters.
Right.
Bland, like maybe they don't even have a name. It's a generic kind of character. It's just something that no writer of fiction should be doing, in my opinion.
Now, Joe Hill, who was Stephen King's son, had a similar type quote. I went up and saw him in Brooklyn when he released his book, Full Throttle. And he talked to us, and his one thing was start with the character, and then you basically try to step on that character through the whole story. Like put every obstacle you can in their way from what they want. And basically, that was his advice.
That is great advice because, again, getting back to drama, it's all about conflict. And the Pride and Prejudice is a great example. It's a love story. You have these two people that, you want to get together so bad. It's like you're reading Twilight or something, and that's actually why Twilight was successful, because people cared about that relationship. And that's the crux of all good love stories. But any story, you have to have conflict. If people fall in love and it's smooth sailing, then why write the book? Like on page 1, you have to have conflicts. The conflict could be an internal conflict, or it could be external. I mean, I'm just doing this whole thing with The Exorcist. The fight of good and evil is classic, but it works.
How do you feel about characters and conflict that have been done but still seem to work? So here's a good example. You brought up Twilight. Mm-hmm. And Twilight is, what's the main character's name? Do you know?
The
girl, Bella.
Oh, Bella, yes, Bella and Edward.
Right? But it's not just Bella and Edward. It's Bella, Edward, and a werewolf.
Oh, yeah, Jason. Yeah.
Right? So there's a triangle here.
Definitely.
And a lot of this, there's such a common thing where we have this girl and she has to choose between the good guy or the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Hunger Games is the same thing. You have Katniss Everdeen, and you have the one guy who's sort of the bad boy and the other one who's the good boy. Now, how do you feel like, let's say we have a listener who's writing a book and this is what they want to do. It has been proven successful. Do you think things like this can get, worn out?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful that in the way that you do it, because so many readers now are so smart that they have names for all these tropes.
Yes.
Like what is the one, the wife in the fridge one? If you've heard about that, like, don't put your wife in the fridge. I don't know. It's a whole thing in horror. Don't put the wife in the fridge. I'm not really sure exactly. Like I'm trying to remember exactly.
This isn't the one where you they eat the whole story where they serve their victim to the police type thing, or
no? I think it's like maybe it comes from like the Gothic, like the ex-wife in the attic kind of thing. I don't know, but it's like don't put your wife in the fridge. And they have these tropes that are recognizable. People like them, they want them, but at the same time, if you're too obvious about it, it's like, oh, I saw that trope coming, and like the triangle. I think the triangle is always going to work, but you have to be clever about the way you do it.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, going back to Star Wars, is that's what the original A New Hope was, the same thing. We had Leia, who's the princess, Han was the bad boy, Luke was the good boy, right? And that was supposed to be that way. Luke was never supposed to be her brother.
Oh.
That was never the case, because even in Empire Strikes Back, she kisses Luke. Lucas was so tired of doing Star Wars that he just got very lazy and said, well, we'll make Leia the sister. That's exactly what happened.
Well, why those movies were successful, and I'm not a fan, but is that they were based on the hero's journey and the mythological archetypes that always work. So you can't change it too much. You got to stick somewhat with the formula.
Star Wars worked because, just as you said, they took the hero's journey and they put it in outer space,
Yes.
and the problem after Star Wars was everybody was like, oh, okay, let's make a movie using the hero's journey. And it became, like you just said, with the Hunger Games and Twilight, it became so obvious to viewers. You have to be very vague with those changes.
That's a thing, but as we know from successful romance books, like Harlequin romances, those are very formulaic. And I can enjoy like gothic, like those old Gothic paperbacks. I like those better than like a Harlequin, but I know what the formula is and I still enjoy them. So it's like when people like superhero probably has those certain formulas too.
Yeah.
So, but it's like there are ways of keeping it fresh. You just have to find, or unique, or putting a different spin on it, or changing the setting. But character is important. If it's just generic characters and a formula, that's going to be very boring, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to beginnings, you might not always hit the character, right? Like you're saying, all right, I got a story and it's this guy's going to go through time and solve a crime. Okay, well, that might be your beginning. That's your idea, but you don't want to write until you know that character. Because, you can write. I'm not saying.
Explore along the way.
Yeah.
That I also think like basing characters on people but just making it bigger than life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when I wrote Black Magic, I really based my dark character on a kind of like clownish people that I've known,
Yes.
And he's like one of my favorite characters, but maybe I'm the only one who gets that. But I really enjoyed writing that character because I could take out my frustration on certain people I know through that character.
There's a book called Save the Cat.
And I've never read that book.
But the idea is what we're talking about when we're talking about character. Save the cat means your character in the beginning of the movie saves a cat and you immediately like them, right?
Oh, I thought that book meant like from Alien, like she's got to save the cat.
What?
Yeah.
No. Well, I mean, it is the same. But do you like Sigourney Weaver because she saves a cat?
Well, I think that, I do. I mean, that.
But isn't that at the end of the movie?
It is at the end, but that whole sequence of her saving the cat is very revealing about her.
Well, that's also in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh.
Right? Doesn't she save the cat?
Maybe. It's been a long time since I've seen that.
Yeah,
movie.
she does. I forget. She calls the cat, I think. I think that's the name of the cat.
Well, if you want someone to really hate your character, have them something mean to the cat.
Yes. Or a dog.
Or a dog, yes.
But the point is to simplify this, know your character, make them likable, give them a want, and make it extremely difficult to get that want. Because
that's pretty good. But make them likable that's also kind of that's subjective in a way.
Give me an example of a character that isn't likable that you know of. It could be from any, because I'm not talking about like an anti-hero.
Well, like Scarlett O'Hara, which, from Gone with the Wind is, which is problematic in film, but her character becomes like less likable as it goes along. Well, it becomes kind of like you're kind of with her character until she becomes such a bitch that you're like, okay, I hate her, but you're still with her. I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example.
Well, why are we with her?
Because we understand her and we understand what she wants, which is the wrong guy. And that's what drives her, is her desire for the man who she thinks she wants, when at the whole time she's got the guy who she really should want. So that, again, we have that triangle, and she's too stupid to realize it until the end when she loses him. And then, she's like, she kind of gets what she deserves, I guess, at the end, but you're kind of always hoping she'll get him back.
Yeah. So it's not, in this case, it's not so much that whether she's likable, it's that you as the reader are trying to stay with her to see if she gets what you get, like you understand what she needs. You want to see if that happens.
It's also like how likable are we to ourselves? A lot of times I think why we relate to characters in books is because they're not likable, they're flawed, because we know that we're flawed and we want to see this character work that out and maybe triumph, because we hope that we'll be able to work out our flaws and our problems. I think if your character is you got to be careful not to create someone who's too nice.
I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay.
Because I think likable does not mean nice. Likable can be, yes, it's a flawed person, but you like them.
Maybe relatable is the better word.
Maybe that is it, yeah. You have to care about them enough that they will achieve what they want. Mm-hmm. If you don't care that this person gets what they want, you're not relating to that, because you're like, well, I don't know if relatable. But I'm saying, like, likable to me doesn't mean they're a good person.
Okay.
Likable means that you care. Maybe that's the word. Like, you care about the character enough.
Yeah. Like Decker in Blade Runner isn't necessarily a nice guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of things where
we're definitely with him.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of characters that you're with. Like even Hunter Thompson in Fear and Loathing. Boy, talk about having flaws.
Yeah. Well, one show I absolutely love, and I can't wait to the next season, is House of the Dragon. Have you watched that?
Yeah, yeah.
The main male character, I forget his character's name. He's like the bad boy.
Yeah, the one at Doctor Who was playing.
Yes, yeah. He is a very unlikable guy. He's awful, but gosh, I can't wait to see him again.
But then again, that
will he grow and change? Will he be tamed?
Right.
Or will he only become worse?
Right. And your villain can be not likable, but you have to understand your villain. Like,
yes.
You have,
Norman Bates is a good example.
Yeah, there's a lot of examples of just villains who are villains, and you're like, ugh. But if you understand why they're doing what they're doing, then it's a much more interesting, because remember, villains do not think they're the villain.
That's true. Yes. They just are justifying what they're doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we got for this week.
Okay.
And we'll be back next week. And how do you feel about the quotes?
I think they're interesting. I think they're good, prompts for discussion.
Yeah. So you want to keep that going?
Yeah, let's do it.
I like it too. All right. So we'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Book Worms Horror Podcast. All our links are in the show notes, and we'll be back next week with a new episode.
Bookworms is a Guerrilladelphia production.